Okay, this is part two, and I hope you've joined me with part one of the series here, and can continue on with this, knowing where I'm at. But also, I just wanted to bring this up again that Shahar, the name of Ben Shahar, is the name in Hebrew that they put up that they say is this man's name that they take, and actually Shahar is the daughter of El in their Canaanite pantheon at this time, so it's the hidden little knowledge. And she is said to be the dawn, along with her twin sister, is the evening setting, and the dawn one is Shahar. And but they call him a son of the morning here later because they take any divinity out of women after what the woman did in Babylon, right? So, but both of these are attributed to the planet Venus and rule the stars at their appointed times. That she was supposed to have been the one that actually caused the 70 stars of the angels that watch over people, the watchers, to be. And that these people were going to try to usurp and take that from her. And as her country fell, they knew that her God fell. Because back in the old days, whenever you killed somebody, you basically killed their God. And they had to say that your God was now stronger than their God and embrace your God, or you killed them, or I don't know, as the Israelites did. If you noticed in the great story there where they couldn't get the cow to light up, that even after they said, "Wow, your God is great," then they killed them and smashed there's heads in. Yeah, there's nothing to learn from that, and really an odd sign. And I've got a video on that too. But let's look into where we were on this. We were at looking into Shalem or Baalim. Baalim is the boy, and Shalem was the sister. These were the girls that were born. And whenever El had to eat his children, if you'll watch my one on El, that was one of his daughters that he killed. The other was the other, and they said that they were deifying her as being these stars and these things that people would always remember because they could look at this star forever. And whenever they looked upon the star, they would remember what had to happen here to make it all happen. And they did, and they outstood the battle. And so Kronos was known as the god of time that could outstand things, that was the Almighty, that was the Ancient of Days, that could make it through, that was the Most High because his star had been chosen as the Most High planet that was of the time. And everybody used to worship planets back then. You can tell even our names of the planets come from the Roman worship of those planets as the god in effigy of them as they're floating all around. So they had this idea there was this dome above the earth with a firmament, and these things were just scooting around, and they were like little fairies kind of flying around, kind of like the angel things. And they weren't that big either. They were the size of people, but that far away with a torch kind of thing. And so a torch in the distance, of course, I think the Babylonians told them that our sun was real close and all the stars were just like that, but way, way far away. And they said they were blasphemous and they killed them all. And that's their story of why Babylon went down, is that and a few other stories about how they said creation was. And of course, this is the creation of Abraham. I don't know if you got it in part one, but look up Joshua 24 and it'll tell you that before Abraham, they worshipped other gods in Samaria, and so Babylon, and so that's where they originally come from. And there's this jealousy between them. It becomes this feud, just terrible. By the way, Saint Cunathon, an ancient historian from like 300 BC, said that from the libraries of Alexandria and from Eusebius and other writings, he had figured out that Yahweh was actually Ehud, another one of his children that had been sacrificed, and that his name was Feud. And because he was the god of these people, and look at the feud that it's causing, it's probably no wonder that they attached the two to it. And that was before they even had the problem we have through time in the Middle East over this feud over this area. So that's an ironic, prophetic type thing. And so you look more into his writings and you find out that he said the ancient Phoenician word for Saturn, that god El, was Israel, spelled exactly the same way for the god El. And of course, and he's saying it's El, Israel. And wow, there you go. There's that. Wow. So anytime they say Israel, they're talking about Saturn, and they're trying to equate Jacob to having been Saturn, huh? the man that was Saturn in the Bible. And if that's the case, that's the exact opposite of who we think he's supposed to be. But let's see. So here we are. Um, and they shall speak and say unto the king of Babylon, art thou the king of Babylon? So what we're going to do here is we're going to take the word out. It's 10 times in there, and all the trees of the different things, he says. And we're going to take the word where it says Lucifer and keep going with the king of Babylon. After he says to the king of Babylon, we're going to keep saying king of Babylon over and over. Check this out. And it shows you how it just gels and goes through. Why would you all of a sudden go to Satan? And they shall speak and say unto thee, king of Babylon, thou art the king of Babylon, and also become weak as we. Art thou the king of Babylon, who became like unto us, mere mortals, and not almighties from heaven? Thy king of Babylon, pomp has brought thee into the grave, and noise of thy king of Babylon, Baals, the worm is spread under thee, king of Babylon, and the worms cover thee, king of Babylon. How art thou, king of Babylon, now fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? What is this? How can the king of Babylon, 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 and then all of a sudden, made 8 times in the 2 sentences, suddenly turn into Lucifer in the middle of a sentence? And where are we told that Lucifer is a proper name for Satan anywhere? Well, they try to say it after this, that this is their equation, and that's what the weirdo thing is here. No, the weirdo thing here is that this is a man from within God's holy group, which he equates to being a man that stood on the throne of God and was up into heaven, that did his thing. This is Satan, who goes down right here, because this is the guy that was in the church wearing the ephod that did the wrong thing. The king of Babylon. So they're saying the king of Babylon was wearing an ephod. And this is strange, but how can they get... Well, it's the king of Tyre. Not the king of Babylon, but the king of Tyre. Well, what is Tyre at the time? Well, Tyre was believed to be owned by Babylon. So they're actually... Oh, you know what's going on here, people? They're actually... The fall of Babylon that was done by Egypt and a few other people, I think they're trying to say that this was them that did it, and it was just them knocking out of this one port city king that took the whole thing down for them. That they didn't have like 14 other giant cities. That's exactly what they're trying to infer here. Oh, because people after that, they go, well, look, remember the king of Tyre, and he took over Babylon. I mean, how do you... That's one city, buddy. That's one city. A thing about one city. I keep interjecting things, and I'm sorry, but it's all good knowledge. Jacob was said to tear up 7 cities and went on through, and you know all the stories, and walls of Jericho come falling down and all this. Well, you know what? A couple of those cities don't ever exist. And we've never found anything to them. Well, it doesn't say they never existed. We haven't found anything from them, but apparently they were big enough for them to act like it was a big woo. And we'd have probably found it by now. We didn't, but out of the like 5 or 6 that are left, only 2 of those could be in the same time frame, within 100 years of each other. I don't know if you know what I'm saying here, but 3 out of the 5 would be so far off they couldn't have been ransacked at the exact same time or during some person's lifetime, even if you give a 100-year span for Jacob to do it and not just a few years, because he apparently just runs right through there like Alexander the Great, right? They pull it off like he did some Alexander the Great thing, right? It's in the Bible. It's one of the most famous things. He comes through and tears that ass up and comes across the Jordan and gets the... Well, history guys that are digging at these places, even Jewish people, you can look up videos on it, have figured out Jericho was a little bitty, if nothing at all, during the time of Jacob. And you have to go about 600 years later, and they finally built up a city and a wall. And then another 100 years or so, and then these other people come in and ransack the shit out of it, and it's gone. And it never had anything to do with the Hebrews. But there is a section of wall that's fallen down. And I bet they came over and thought this little idea and came up. But that one thing is that it's 600 years difference, I believe they say, from, if you say the other two are within 100 years. But also to say within 100 years, that's not saying that Jacob even did his thing in the right order. And also it says that he didn't even do them within 100 years. Some 80 to 100 years doesn't allow for Jacob to have done it. He's not like fighting whenever he's 12 and fighting when he's 92. So it doesn't really allow for it. And that's whenever they squinch the numbers close together and try to make it work, people. We try to make the Bible work rather than go, look. But there's too much information over time that's starting to go, look. And here's one right here where you try to find Lucifer, and then later, of course, in Revelations where it's Lucifer. Well, that whole thing was about Babylon and how Babylon went down. And let me cut to the chase here real quick. I may have to go into a third video doing this, but I want to cut to a chase here. That Revelations used to actually be not at the end of the Bible, but one of the first things in the Bible. And it was weird. It was a revelation thing, and then they showed you all the shit coming to be afterwards. And it was a cool way of doing it, kind of, I guess, because they'd be like, here's all this shit they talk about when this guy has this prophecy, and then here it was through time. But Rome flipped around with Greek people and flipped around and put them in different orders. You can look this up. There's been some fumbling going on. You can definitely be. Everybody knows it that's a good scholar. And they just rearranged them a little bit. Well, what did they put it at the end for? Well, it didn't have a good ending. Why didn't it have a good ending? Because the Bible has a great ending, or no, it really doesn't. We're sitting here waiting for this ending of Doomsday thing, that before it just petered out with the fact of them have been worshiping Canaanite stuff the whole time, and then Rome comes in and smokes them in the Jewish revolt of 73 AD, and they're gone. And that was the end of them. But they decide, whenever they're starting to adopt in Mithra and Sol Invictus, then it's Persian beliefs that they can twist it all and put it together with all the Hebrew stuff they stole from the Hebrews after they killed them all off, and turn it into a little different story. And their hands all over it, with the name Lucifer being a double, before we find it, a double transliteration of the original word. Actually a triple. It is the third, because it goes from the man's name, right, to say bright and shining one, to going to phosphorus, and then that becoming the Latin Lucifer. That the original one was the name of that king there. And the word actual Lucifer that's right in there, and they say, oh, it's Lucifer, that's actually howl. A word that they have figured out that in their religion they used to howl. They would howl at the moon. They would, oh, and howl. And that they would wail and howl for their God and make all kinds of noise. You see in black churches sometimes. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a together wailing of people. They would sit out in the dirt and throw dirt over the top of their head and ashes and stuff. There's all kinds of stories as to what these people were doing during this time. Well, the Canaanites and Baal worship and all that type of stuff, which we find out later is exactly what they're doing. The El and Baal worship that was Canaanites with Asherah. Asherah is his wife. The only place you can find Asherah now in the Bible is it's the name of a pole that helps hold up the tabernacle tent. They've relegated her into that, but you find that Asherah's old symbol used to be a tree inside the house whenever it was Babylonian, and then they turned it into a stripped dead tree totem pole that was carved on out in front of all their temples. And that got re-represented as a stone effigy by the Egyptians, and that's why they had those obelisks in front of those. And if you want to find a fancy one, Look at the hourglass sundial that is Vatican Rome. When you look down on it, and it's got that 8-pointed wheel sun symbol of the Sumerians with that Asherah pole stuck right into it. And then, well, Asherah was our thing. Well, Asherah was your thing, but it was your woman that was actually the queen of heaven from Babylon and Sumeria that had spawned all 70 groups, because you knew that you had to have come from that, because everyone knew that the Sumerians were the ones that had the more advanced knowledge on the planet and were the great advanced race. Is Lucifer a proper name? Is it even a noun? Is Lucifer another name for the king of Babylon? Is Lucifer an English word? Is there a Hebrew word that could be translated as Lucifer? Is that spelling? No, not really. I'm going to shine some light on this "O Lucifer, son of morning" business, and we can all watch Lucifer disappear in the dawn's early light. But it's another heresy from the Dark Ages that crept into hallowed halls of the church. It's a little lengthy, but it's one of the most intriguing bits of deception, and you will ever see exposed. So I'll take some time to debunk it here. Lucifer is a hoax. Sorry about that. Lucifer is a hoax. How in the world did we get this Latin word Lucifer as part of Isaiah 14:12 in so many English Bibles? First, just who is it that fell from heaven? And does the phrase falling from heaven prove that this person had to be an Almighty's throne, or at least in interstellar space, to have fallen down from heaven? Because, you got to be up in heaven to fall down from heaven. Well, does that prove that this must have been a spirit being? No, of course not. It's a figure of speech. Here's proof from none other than Yahushua, Jesus. And you, Capernaum, which are exalted to heaven, shall be thrust down from heaven to hell. Luke 10:15. So no, you don't have to actually be there to say it. It's like a sense of being. Here's another one. So we have a whole city being thrown down to heaven, to Hades, their grave. And so it is with the king of Babylon, whose pomp is brought down to the grave, in Isaiah 14:11. These two scriptures are exactly parallel thoughts. There's nothing different about them at all. It's paralleling, actually. And in fact, here's your paralleling in the Bible, where it happens to them, it happens to Capernaum, it happens here, it happens there, and they keep doing stuff over and over again in the Bible. I've got a video on that too. Now then, back to Lucifer. Just what is the Hebrew word found in the manuscripts that translators turned into the word Lucifer? It's very interesting. All of you Strong's Concordance, look up the word Lucifer. Right after the word Lucifer, we're given a definition before we even go to a dictionary to find the meaning. Here's what you'll find. Lucifer, title applied to King Babylon. What? Well, if you look in Strong's, it says Lucifer, Lucifer of Ur. Lucifer of Ur is a title applied to King of Babylon. So there. Even your Jewish Strong's Concordance tell you that it's not Lucifer, it's not Satan. Does it say a name applied to Satan? No. Clearly the Strong's Concordance realizes that this word, whatever it means, is to be applied to the king of Babylon and not Satan. But man, you get into church on Sunday and they want to tell you, oh, Satan, bright one of the mornings, hey, y'all, watch out, because he's going to come, he's going to be pretty and try to flamboy y'all. How about it's an old story that already went down a long time ago, and you're sitting around waiting for something that's already happened? You're staring through the forest going, where's the trees? Right. Let's just breaking through it right there, people. Again, Pikachu. And as I like to do, a ding. That isn't. So how do we get this from the scriptures? Well, the scriptures say, and no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light in 2 Corinthians. Well, this is them looking at the Bible afterwards. This is after the year 300, and they're trying to put the Bible together to where they come around and write in Corinthians and letter to the Corinthians. And of course, this is Paul, who's partly Antichrist anyhow, right, people? Paul is one that's teachings against Christ to all. He he felt like he had to apologize to all these guys and tell them what the difference was between what Jesus just said and what we should really be doing. That would, in effect, be an antichristic type of thing. But I'm not saying Paul was the Antichrist, because the Antichrist had already happened long ago. Now somebody comes up with the idea there has to be 6 of them. And I'm like, okay, well, all the false apostles would have been that after Nimrod. So one Nimrod, Isaiah 4, 5, 6. Yeah, we're already at 6. So what happens after 6? Well, then the devil comes and he does the thing, and then, well, the next one that comes is Jesus. And he's, oh, son of the morning. So are you trying to do that? Now you're turning him into the devil? Well, that's that's what it says. Let's continue here, though. I'm not trying to turn Jesus into the devil. I've got a whole video on that. Jesus tells them that they're of the father of the devil, that they're Abraham's seed. He doesn't say that he is. So there's a web of deceit, just like the web that I use to put everything together whenever I've attached ancient civilizations and who they're talking about and so on. And it's woven through this light-bringing brightness morning star Lucifer theory. This word Lucifer appears in no other place in scriptures. Was Satan ever spoke to as a light-bringing perfect archangel? No, that doesn't say it in the scriptures. But what it does say is that he was darkness. And no marvel, for Satan himself transformed himself into an angel of light. Satan is not an angel of light, neither has he ever been. That's a false apostle, deceitful people, workers here telling you this. They deceive people into believing lies. Satan appears as an angel of light to the world. He is transformed into an angel of light, but it's an illusion. It's not true. It's a deception. That's what they're trying to tell you. Well, now, Paul expels any such theory that Satan knows anything about light. And so he cuts his own throat on the whole idea here. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against power, and against the rulers of the darkness of this world. But Revelation 16:10 is but the continuation of the same Babylonian beast that we read in Isaiah 14. And the 5th angel poured out his vial upon the seat, the beast, and the kingdom was full of darkness. This is who we're supposed to equate that with, right? Okay, so he's not ever doing a bright thing. The bright thing is someone else, and it's a woman. And even in Revelations, it's left as a woman. It's the only one left there. She comes out with a cup doing her thing, and they go, leave the whore in there. But they took the woman out of the rest of it. So what is this halal of Isaiah 14:12, the word that's there? Too many translations of previous translations without checking the Hebrew manuscripts first is what we actually have there. Lucifer is the Latin Vulgate word translation Zosphoros, which is phosphorus, in the Septuagint, which is a Greek version of the Hebrew of Isaiah 14:12, which the King James translators then used to translate English as Lucifer, being real bright. From their modern chemistry they just started working on, knowing how bright phosphorus is. This is an incorrect word right here, because they are giving her the bright name because of the morning star in Greek, and then they screw it up and do it here. You can see that. It's a 1, 2, 3, 4 thing, people. The Latin and Greek is well supported from Hebrew word in verse 12 mean bright shiner or shining one. The problem is, however, that Isaiah 14